Welcome to the Veganuary podcast, the podcast that helps you to try a vegan diet. It's stuffed full of hints and tips for vegan and veg-curious people. Hello, Wendy.
Hello, Stu.
We've got another really exciting guest coming up on today's episode, which is Deborah Meaden. But before we get into that, what's the most vegan thing that's happened to you this week, Wendy?
I have a good one that I think might be relatable to some other vegans out there. So my partner pointed out that whenever I make my shopping list, I always write vegan milk, vegan cheese, vegan chicken on the list. And he's like, who are you doing this for? You're the only one reading it. But I can't bring myself to just write milk or cheese on my shopping list. You know, if I get hit by a bus on the way to the store, God forbid someone thought I was going to buy animal products. So...
Do you know
what about you?
You know what that makes me think of? So as you know, I've got a little boy, 3-year-old, who I've talked about on the podcast, talked about at length to anyone that'll listen. And so whenever we're serving him dinner, we'll like make him sausages, for instance, and we'll say, oh, we're having sausages tonight, Robin. But then I feel like I need to say, well, they're vegan sausages. Or I suppose it's even more noticeable when it's like chicken. We like... The fake chicken pieces, we would just normally say chicken, but we don't want him to think he's eating an animal. So then we have to say, I mean, it's vegan chicken. That's really funny.
Yeah, it makes sense with a kid.
Yeah. But but you know, good to keep yourself in check. Imagine if you accidentally came home and you bought non-vegan milk.
Mortifying.
My most vegan thing, I've been cooking loads of aubergine.
That's eggplant for our US listeners.
Yes. I think I'm trying to convince myself to like it.
Well, how do you prepare it?
I'm trying lots of different ways. There's one recipe I've come across that I really like. I'm not sure how you pronounce the word. I think it's Szechuan. Does that sound right to
close.
You? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like a Chinese stir-fry sauce. That's a nice way, but other than that, struggling a bit.
Okay, I have a lot to say about this because I just realized steaming is the only way I can get it as soft as I want it in a stir fry. You got to try steaming it.
So you steam it first and then you throw it in the stir fry, and fry it off a little bit at the end.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Anyway, I think before I went vegan, I probably thought that aubergine was kind of like mostly what vegans ate. So I think I'm trying to, I don't know, live the vegan life and convince myself that I like it. It's such a beautiful, an eggplant, an aubergine is such a beautiful thing to look at. I think it's like a really nice, so I want to like it.
Yeah, it's a good-looking vegetable.
Beautiful vegetable. Anyway, if you're listening and we're interested to hear your most vegan and least vegan things. What cliche vegan things have happened to you? What big vegan hiccups have you had? We'd love to hear from you. So email us at podcast@veganuary.com. Wendy, coming up, we have Deborah Meaden, and we're going to talk to Deborah a lot about her vegan experience, but also about being an environmentalist in the business world, and also kind of environmentally friendly innovations. And I thought this was just a good opportunity for us to mention some of the main innovations in plant-based food. So I thought we could talk a little bit about meat substitutes. And I think in the last couple of years, there's been a bit of a kickback. There's been a big explosion of meat substitutes, and you can buy all sorts of meat alternatives. And then in the last year or two, we've started to see quite a lot of criticism of people saying, well, vegan diets are kind of full of this junk food, and it's all ultra processed food, and it's all really bad for you. So I thought we could dig a little bit into that. And I just wanted to say, so that everybody knows, we did a piece of research in 2020 that found that only 3.7% of all vegan household spend on food and drink actually goes on meat substitutes. So actually it may not be as big a part of a vegan diet as it first seems. And at Veganuary, we've got a big campaign this year, which is all about pushing vegetables and whole foods and really healthy diets. But for lots of people, meat substitutes help to make going vegan and trying vegan diets easy. So that's a little introduction. Where should we go next?
Transition foods. And I think this is such a good topic, Stu, because this has been a very buzzy topic in the U.S. this year. You see headlines coming out, both from alt protein companies and from traditional meat companies talking about the pros and cons of meat substitutes. So maybe you can just start by giving us a little bit of a rundown. What are some of the pros and cons of meat substitutes?
Yeah, I mean, I've already touched on some of them, but I think the biggest pros are that if people who are new to vegan diets or people who are flexitarian and just want to try reducing their meat intake, it's really accessible. And so it helps meat eaters eat less meat. It's really familiar. The textures are very similar. The tastes are very similar. And there's a lot more opportunities. Say if you go out to McDonald's or Burger King, it's a lot easier to actually, in that moment, even if you don't identify as someone who is vegan, to just make a choice which is plant-based. So I think that's a really important thing. They're also really quick and convenient, which is a big draw. Like, I like to do lots of cooking and cook from scratch, and it's just not something I can do every night. Sometimes you're short on time. Not everybody is, a really expert cook. So having stuff that's really easy to just put in the oven is like really helpful. So I think that's important. I think as well, like, they're really important for different kinds of lifestyles. And I think that's something we may sometimes forget about, is that not everyone lives exactly the same life when they start following a plant-based diet. So for me, definitely when I had a child, we started eating a lot more of these meat alternatives, because things like sausages and fish fingers are just really easy to cook for Robin, and we kind of know that he'll eat them. There's other people as well. If we think about people with disabilities that might have trouble actually preparing food, which is very intricate, or it requires lots of chopping, etc. Having stuff that's kind of ready to go and doesn't require too much prep is really helpful. And all these things, of course, help make plant-based food more accessible.
Yeah, all great points. And what about the cons?
Yes, I think the cons are the mounting evidence that they may not be that good for us. A lot of them are classed as ultra-processed foods, and we are seeing a lot of research come out about how bad that can be for your health. And then I think something else I feel is that it kind of detaches us from our understanding of where our food comes from. And I think that's really important for us to understand the provenance of our food. So yeah, I think they're the main cons.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I think, if we were eating plant-based meats at the rate that a lot of Americans eat non-plant-based meats, right, then it's several times a day, it's at every meal, and then it starts to stack up. But if you aim for a more balanced diet where plant-based meat is just a part of it and it's surrounded by vegetables, it can really be a, healthy part of your plate. Basically.
That's true. And I think if you're someone that before you went plant-based ate a lot of processed foods anyway, I mean, you're probably still going to eat the same number of processed foods. So in that sense, you're not necessarily getting more unhealthy just because you're switching to vegan processed foods. You're just switching one processed food for another.
Yeah. So you hear a lot these days about cultured meat. So tell us a little bit about the difference. What is a meat substitute versus cultured meat?
Yes, so a meat substitute is, I guess, like a meat analog that's been made from plants. So it's something that's been made usually from maybe soya or pea protein, or there's loads of different things, ingredients that can make these products. But they start as plants and then they create something that has the texture and flavour of meat. Cultured meat is sometimes what we hear called lab-grown meat. So this isn't really, as far as I know, it isn't kind of available to consumers yet, but we think probably in the next maybe 5 to 10 years, this will be a growing trend. So this is meat that has been grown in a lab, usually from an animal cell. I don't really know how the technology works, but I'm guessing like a big 3D printer. Does that sound right? Possibly.
Sounds right to me.
So it allows us. It will allow companies to market a product which is meat, but with far less impact on the planet and far fewer animals exploited.
And you hear a lot of discussion around this. It does seem like a hot topic that people have pretty big opinions about. So, why do some people have issues with cultured meat?
Well, I think one reason, and people have this issue with meat alternatives as well as cultured meat, is you're still kind of saying that you think meat is a good thing to eat. So I think if you're a kind of proper hardcore vegan, where some people position themselves is actually we shouldn't be kind of thinking that meat is good at all. We should really be focusing on how great plants are, and the great availability of plant-based of food, which is just vegetables and lentils and pulses and grains and all these things. I have a bit of sympathy with that kind of way of thinking. Like the meat alternatives aren't my favourite, but I think strategically, I think it's really good to be aware that if we want more and more people to come on board and start eating more plant-based products, then these things are really going to help, and I think we should try and avoid being snooty about them. And then specifically when it comes to cultured meat, well, there is still going to have to be an animal exploited in the process, because we need to collect the original cells that we start to build the meat from. So you're still exploiting, probably slaughtering an animal to get that meat. I would say, on the whole, we're going to save a lot more animals by doing it that way. So that's something to bear in mind.
Yeah.
And then I think just it's kind of a nicky idea. The cultured meat, like meat grown from a lab, I think it'll be really interesting to see when it does start coming out and being available to consumers, how it's received. Lots of our food is made in kind of factories and we don't see what happens to it. But I think there's something about this that feels a bit Frankenstein-y. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can see the thinking on both sides of it for sure. But ultimately, anything that's going to spare more animal lives, I'm in favor of. I think we're at a point in history where we need to get quite creative to keep up with the amount of meat consumption that's happening, and consuming any of these cultured meats, meat alternatives in moderation, I think is an important thing to focus on, and really focusing on vegetables and whole foods eating, which is part of the theme of Veganuary this year, will become more important as people kind of move through their plant-based journey.
Absolutely. Right. Shall we get on to the meat of our episode today, which is
Nice
our
one.
interview with Deborah Meaden. So Deborah Meaden, if you don't know, she's an entrepreneur and businesswoman who came to public attention when she became a dragon on Dragon's Den. She also competed in the 2013 series of Strictly Come Dancing, which I am a huge fan of, and I got to ask her some questions about Strictly Come Dancing, which I loved. In recent years, Deborah Meaden has become very vocal on a number of issues, including animal welfare and the environment. Deborah participated in Veganuary 2020, and she's been a big supporter of our work ever since. And she also presents her own series, her own podcast series called The Big Green Money Show, which is a really good listen. And I think a lot of the topics that she covers in that podcast will be of interest to listeners of this podcast. So check that out once you've listened to this, which is our interview with Deborah. Deborah Meaden, welcome to the Veganuary podcast.
Well, it's good to be here talking to you.
Thanks for coming. We really appreciate it. I'm going to leap straight in and ask you, what is your dream vegan meal?
Oh, I know instantly. So, cheap vegan sausages, mashed potato, and vegan onion and leek gravy.
That sounds really, really good.
I know. It's not what I eat all the time because I like to prepare, I like to eat. That's not the healthiest, but it's still a bit of a guilty pleasure.
Do you, so it's interesting. You said the cheap vegan sausages. They're my favourite as well. I like the ones that remind me of the cheap meat sausages. Not the Linda McCartney ones, the more,
Yeah,
they feel a bit naughtier.
Exactly. Do you know, and I love it. I get asked that question all the time. Well, if you don't like eating meat, why do you want to eat things that taste like meat or look like meat? And I'm like, the reason I don't want to eat meat is for animal welfare and I just don't want to eat an animal. So it doesn't mean I don't like the taste or the shape or the, I do like I did like when I did eat meat, I did like cheap sausages, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So why would that change?
Yeah. Well, and I sometimes think there's very little meat in a cheap sausage, so it's not too
Well,
far
exactly.
away.
They probably were vegan.
And is that the kind of thing? So that's the kind of thing you would have eaten before you switched to plant-based, was it? Kind of.
Well, so my husband's a fantastic cook,
Okay.
and he wouldn't let me eat things like baked beans on toast and cheap sausages with onion gravy. He wouldn't let me because I always got lovely meals. But those were the things that I secretly craved. If I was allowed to live on my own, I would be able to. Those are the things I'd want to eat. So they're still my go-to. So I'm a little bit. I loved school dinners. I don't have that, but I do love really lovely food. And I think what I love about having gone plant-based is that I found new flavours and new combinations, because you can't just rely on a meat and veg, and that's one of the things that I say to everybody. My goodness, it's taken me into a whole new world of taste experiences, which is great.
Mm. So
Yeah, absolutely.
When did you go plant-based, and what triggered your decision?
Well, I'd stopped eating fish a long time ago. I stopped eating fish instantly. I went to the Tokyo fish market and I looked across those acres of dead and dying fish, and I just thought, this is just wrong. I can't. It actually made me feel physically ill, and I stopped instantly. I couldn't eat fish if I wanted to, which is unusual because I think a lot of people enter it from actually carrying, eat pescatarian. They stop eating meat and then they stop eating fish. So I stopped eating fish. Never really ate a lot of meat anyway, and thought, I'll try Veganuary and I'll see how it feels. And to be honest, I never really decided to stay plant-based. I just did. I feel better. I enjoyed it. And I just got to the end of it. I actually don't want to eat meat.
So you had this transformative moment at the fish market. You decided to start moving towards plant-based. Is there anything that you found especially challenging when adopting a plant-based diet?
Well, generally, no. The most challenging thing is that I've never cooked a meal in my life. And my husband is a fabulous cook, and he quite rightly said to me, he's reduced his meat intake hugely, but he quite rightly said to me, this is your decision to go plant-based. This is not my choice, and I'm not cooking 2 meals. So, and that's fair. What we do tend to, so that was a challenge, because suddenly I thought, I don't cook, I assemble things. I get a group of food together. Sometimes I don't even bother assembling it. I just eat it in its individual components. So I do rather miss his rather fabulous cooking. So that was a challenge. But in terms of feeling like I'd given up anything, on the contrary, I felt I'd found things. It opened a whole new door for me. And I definitely eat healthier. I think more about what I eat, because you do have to watch your protein and your B12s. There are certain things that you do think, actually, I need to make sure I've got enough of that. And it's made me think in a much better way about food. I don't just see it, I don't just kind of eat it and not think about it. Now it is thoughtful food. And I'm actually quite enjoying that.
That resonates really strongly with me, because when I gave up meat, it's like there's a whole world of vegetables that I'm not to say I hadn't tried them, but just hadn't thought about cooking them in different ways or pairing them together and that kind of thing. So it kind of opens your mind a little bit to what you can do with food.
Yes.
What about, maybe you've just answered this, but was there anything that you thought might be really difficult that actually you were surprised was quite easy?
No. I found something that was really difficult, and I found it really difficult. So everyone says, what about bacon? That wasn't my thing. That was not my thing. And actually, oddly enough, anything smoky, you can really translate well into vegan alternatives, you know, so that really is not an issue. My big issue is cheese.
Yeah.
However, it was also the thing that I think I benefited most from giving up, because I had no idea how it was affecting me. And I used to get allergies all of the time. I got chesty really, really easily, or I get blocked sinuses. And this isn't obviously the reason that I actually gave up, dear. I gave it up because I wanted to become a vegan. I am staggered at how much better I feel. And I do feel like, I say to people all the time, just try taking dairy out of your diet for a bit. You will be amazed. Doesn't mean I don't still crave cheese. My husband's we've got lovely cheesemakers down in the southwest. And my husband's always got gorgeous blocks of the best cheddar in the world in the fridge. But I haven't faltered yet.
Have you found a plant-based cheese you can tolerate?
No, so I don't think any of the plant-based cheeses actually taste in the slightest bit like cheese.
No.
And they certainly don't have the consistency. That isn't to say that I haven't found a lot of plant-based cheeses that I do actually like.
Yeah.
I like them as long as I don't expect them to be. I don't expect the camembert or the faux camembert to actually be camembert. I think that's the thing. You've got to think this is a thing of its own, and it's actually very nice. But I haven't found really a cheese that satisfies my need for a good old cheddar. And cheddar is the hardest, I think. Some of the truffle-based plant-based cheeses are actually really quite nice. Were very good, but nobody's cracked the cheddar.
Yeah, you were talking earlier about the expansiveness of a plant-based diet. And, I've noticed that too. It's like I used to eat cheese, but now I eat cashew cheese and almond cheese. And I've had potato cheese, just all the different options that are opened up to you.
I've never heard of potato cheese.
I haven't. I was about to say the same thing. Potato cheese. Is that good? Is it good?
It's not bad. I'll have to send you both a recipe.
But you made it.
Yeah, so a pretty common blogger recipe in the U.S. is to use a potato-based cheese in macaroni and cheese, and it's much nicer than it sounds.
Ah,
interesting.
Okay. Although you said, as soon as you said recipe, I switched off because I don't actually. I did tell you at the beginning, I make nothing. I assemble things.
So this is switching gears a bit, but you're someone who's certainly not afraid to be vocal about political and environmental issues. And we'd love to know a bit more about that. Why is that important to you, and what kind of reaction do you receive?
I feel very privileged to have a voice. Being on television, every week for the last 19 series of Dragon's Den, for the period that it's on, it's given me a voice. And I think that it would be a neglect of a duty to actually not use that voice for things that I really, really care about. So that's why I think I do, to be fair, I've always said to people, if you've got an issue, say it. and that's whether I've been working in business, whether I'm with friends, when people roll their eyes and fold their arms, and, if there's something unspoken, I've always said, look, if you feel it, say it, just approach it, get it out so that you're not bottling it up in there. So I've always been that person who is inclined to do that. But as I say, I think because I have a platform now, I think it's important that I craft those conversations in a way that helps some of the things that I really, really care about. So it's kind of, I called it a duty. I don't mean that to sound, I don't sit here and think, I'm terribly righteous and I need to use this, but I do feel the way I craft things, the way I talk about things, if I'm going to say something, let's make it useful.
Yeah. And what kind of, because I see you on Twitter, X now, what kind of kickback do you get? Because I know lots of people that are in the public eye get all sorts of horrible abuse.
Oh, I get quite a lot. It doesn't bother me one iota. I just think, people who don't know me being critical and unpleasant about me, why would it bother me? They don't know me. They haven't got the slightest idea who I am or what I am all about. So it's just, I think it helps, having been in sort of retail or customer facing businesses my entire life, and spending my life saying to my teams, if somebody has a complaint, this is not personal. They don't know you. They're not attacking you. Yeah. We as an organisation have done something to upset them, but it's not personal. So to me, I kind of apply the same thing. These people don't know me. So however, if there's a valid, I would say once or twice people have come back at me and I thought, do you know what, they're right. I shouldn't have said that like that. I see how that's come across. So, if I feel it's valid, I'll take it on board. But, just the trolls that you get, and every time I talk about climate change, I'm just like, I press the button and I think, go on then, off you go.
Yeah, it can be so. It feels sometimes like you are banging your head into a wall with those issues. Sometimes when there's such a strong voice of people denying or just saying things that are plainly untrue, that I find that really frustrating. So it's a difficult space. It's something that a lot of our participants will start to have a taste of when they do Veganuary, because they might start to talk about eating vegan and get some kind of kickback from their friends or family or people that don't know them. So I think that's really helpful advice. Yeah.
What do you know? The ones that actually do concern me, and I would like to get this out, is that so I kind of waver, but I'm not sure whether I am a vegan yet. I haven't actually bought anything leather for a long time, but that isn't to say that I've got leather handbags and I'm sitting on a leather chair. But when I say that, you can imagine, sometimes I feel like you cannot be vegan enough for a vegan.
Yeah.
Somebody will come in and say, yeah, but you've got a leather chair, haven't you? And oh, yeah, yeah, you're right, I've got a leather chair. And that can be a little bit disheartening, because you think, do you know what, we need to encourage more people. We don't need to bash people over the head because they're not quite there yet, or they're not 100% and pure. So I think that's a very important thing to remember.
Completely agree, and that's another thing that our participants face is you sometimes getting feeling like you're attacked from one side for going green, and then from the other side from not being green enough. And something we really want to tell people is you need to take things at your own time, and you need to make decisions. A lot of the issues you're talking about are kind of hot topics in the vegan world. Not everyone agrees on these things, so you need to do your research and make up your own mind on the topic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I tell you what I have loved, because we tend to have dinner party. I'm not, I obviously go out to restaurants, but actually I would say most of my social life sits around, going to friends' houses for dinners and them coming over. And I am loving, introducing my friends to vegan menus. You know, they've been amazing, and they have cooked the most amazing vegan meals that I would never ever have thought of, never even tasted in a restaurant. You know, and a lot of them have said, actually, we're now only eating meat 3 times a week. You know, and I am loving that, and you can't criticize people for eating meat 3 times a week when they were eating meat 7 times a week. Absolutely. You know, and now they're on a journey towards eating less. So you know, I think done the right way, then I think a lot more people will at least reduce their meat and dairy intake, even if they can't completely stop it.
Yeah, I really think food is the best form of activism. And, you know, we talk a lot about the social challenges of moving towards plant-based, but we don't talk as much about the social advantages. I mean, it's so much fun to share a vegan meal with your friends. It's so much fun to see them open their eyes to foods they've never tried before. So, yeah, I'm glad you're having that experience.
Well, the next question was about kind of the position of being a business person and also an environmentalist, and whether you perceive there to be any tensions there. We hear a lot at the moment about growth and how that affects our environment, and you know, we only have a finite amount of resources, and maybe that's at odds with being a business person, or maybe not. I wondered what you thought.
Well, you're right. There is a tension, because there must be, because I have to consider when I'm either investing, I have to consider, is this something I want to be involved with? Is it moving in the right direction? And when we take decisions, I'm always like, hold on, how does that fit with everything that I'm worried about? So there's definitely a tension. And the truth is that we need to find a way not to grow. We need to find a way. I always say growth is a little bit of a lazy way for us to we kind of think it's the only way to live. We've got to keep growing. Businesses have got to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I always say, actually, businesses tend to have a natural size. Now, that might be turning over £100,000 a year. It actually might be turning over £1 billion a year. It gets resource intense when it goes outside of its natural boundaries, because then it starts throwing stuff at trying to get bigger. You know, well, we need to try this and we need to do that. And we need to create a new this, and then we need to load more products and go into different product lines, and they're not really what the core of the business is all about. So it's just not ergonomic, you know, it's just not right for a business. So I always say to a business, you know, what is our natural size here? And we'll feel when you get to it, you know, you'll start feeling the resistance. You start scratching your chin and thinking, ooh, now what do we do to grow the business? You know, so, and we need to learn how to stay fresh and how to stay relevant without relying on growth. To, you know, and to be happy to say, actually, we are still, it's not that we're just standing still, we're changing, we're keeping up with the consumer demands, you know, we're keeping ahead of the consumer demands, but it doesn't mean that we have to grow financially. You know, we just have to keep fresh and alive and alert and relevant. So we have to find, I think that's my biggest worry. I think we are so embedded with growth that I just so worry we're never going to find our way of not using growth as a measure. GDP, how is that measured? Every single quarter, it's measured on growth.
It can be a bit tempting to be cynical when you see businesses shouting about their environmental credentials, and you know, the temptation is to think that they're box ticking or greenwashing. I'm curious, you know, does green money actually make good business sense? And are there big opportunities for doing environmentally friendly business?
So I find the businesses that I talk to a lot of businesses, obviously, I find them absolutely amazing, and I come away from them feeling hopeful, and I walk away from some feeling, I am so disappointed, because business isn't one thing. You know, there are some amazing businesses born of wanting to make the world better in terms, you know, reducing planet. They're born of it. It's in their DNA. Everything they speak about, every decision they make is all about reducing impact. And they're wonderful, and that's fantastic. They're often young businesses because they don't have legacy. They don't have to change culture. They started with that particular culture. Then you get other businesses who really want to get on board, but they're embedded in this harmful practices, and they have shareholders, and they actually, if you think about it, I interviewed the boss of EasyJet on my Big Green Money show. I mean, good on him for coming on, because that's a difficult one to defend. But he's absolutely right. If suddenly he said, well, actually, should we stop flying? Should we just stop flying? Because you're not going to like that. That isn't going to. So you have got to be able to deliver what people want, but in a more efficient and effective way in reducing the planetary impact. So you've got those businesses who really do want to grapple it, but have legacy issues. And I forgive those as long as I see them genuinely moving towards, change and making things better. Then you get other businesses who are absolutely getting there kicking and screaming. They really would rather they didn't have to deal with this, but ESG, and they're going to have to. I don't mind, because I often think that once people open the door and see what they can do to reduce planetary impact, to help nature, increase biodiversity, all of those things actually do make us happier, healthier, feel better, and the customer likes them. So even if they're forced kicking and screaming through that door, that's fine. That's fine. I don't care how they get there, because I believe that once most of them, not everyone, but most of them, when they start feeling how it matters to their customer, because it is increasingly mattering to their customers, as once they start seeing that, they realise that, this is actually a business issue. This is a commercial issue here. We need to get this right. Otherwise, we are going to lose our customers. Because I genuinely believe that anybody who isn't properly tackling planetary impact and relationships with nature and net zero and all of the things we know that are important, any organisation that isn't tackling that doesn't know it yet, but they are in trouble, because the consumer is moving like that. 2 years ago, we weren't even talking about biodiversity, and now it's bang slap in the centre of what everyone's worried about. So, if you're not ready, your customer's going to drop you pretty quick.
It seems to me there's possibly a big opportunity as well, maybe for businesses who are establishing, green ideas. These are the things we're going to need in the future, right? Our green ideas to survive. A couple of years ago, I had a conversation with a dairy farmer who had decided to go into veganic farming. So he got rid of all his cows and he wanted to establish a veganic farm. He said to me that there was pressure on him to keep the costs down. So, when he's selling the when he's selling the milk and the cheese into supermarkets, and the only way to keep up with that is to cram more and more cows into a limited space, and there's only so far that can go, right? So I guess when we're running out, when we have finite space, we have finite resources, the people that are coming up with the new green ideas of how we can live more sustainably, the future's kind of in their hands. Do you think there's some truth in that?
Well, I think there is, but I don't think we can ignore the huge corporations who are who are embracing it, probably too slow for my particular liking, but we can't ignore them. We can't just say, well, you're a green business, you are going to be the big survivors, because actually the big change can be driven by the huge organisations, and we have to engage with them, and we have to hope. I mean, I interviewed the head of sustainability at Nestle. Now, everybody goes, oh, Nestle. They are doing some fantastic stuff that is going to be able to roll out in terms of reducing plastic, and listening to them, and me understanding him unpacking some of the issues. Whereas, but doing so, if we do completely compostable, and India isn't ready for that because we're we sell all across the world. Actually, putting compostable goods into their recycling process isn't going to help. It's going to make things worse. I really understood the complexities, but I was really impressed at the depth of knowledge and how far they were down the route, and the fact that their inventions were going to change everybody, you know, because once they've come up with something, everybody can use it, you know, so they do play a really important part. And I don't think big corporation bashing is helpful at all. Somebody else said to me, and I use Ecova. And somebody said, well, that's Unilever now, isn't it? You know, that's so I can't buy that anymore. I said, oh, please buy it. Show Unilever. Show them how important it is to make your stuff environmentally friendly. You not buying isn't going to do that, but you buying a load of Ecova, that's going to do it. That's going to make them look at their other products and think, oh, maybe that's, you know, maybe we ought to put that across all of our range. So, you know, I think that we do need to engage with the big corporations. We can't just rely on the new startup businesses. I think the part that they play, the businesses that are really deeply green, I think they drive market and open doors. You know, they're the kind of push. They're the kind of look, oh yeah, but that's what we're doing. Look what we're doing. You know, and it keeps the big corps on their toes.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely, you know, behind the strategy of Veganuary as well. We think if we're going to move the needle, we really need to work with some of the biggest players in the food space and encourage them to, you know, launch and promote vegan versions of some of their most popular items.
Absolutely, and you they have got huge reach. You know, they've got a huge amount of customers, and you will be criticised. You know, I get criticised for even being in business. You know, it's just like, yeah, but business exists. You know, isn't it better to have people in business who are driving towards the right goal? You know, so I think sometimes you just got to put your head down and think, you know, this is just for the greater good.
What about when you're looking to invest in a business? So where someone comes into Dragon's Den, how important is it to look at their environmental credentials? Is it something you consider?
For me, absolutely essential. I will not invest in a business, and you will, in the next series, you will see me say, I'm sorry, I'm never going to invest in a business that's creating a load of completely pointless little plastic things. Right. I don't care how much money it's going to make, and I'm sure it'll make a fortune, but I am not interested. So because I don't believe, I think you cannot talk about things and not change your behaviour in line with the things that you're talking about. You know, people, listen, I'm absolutely not perfect. Of course I'm not. You know, I'm going to get things wrong, and I'm going to do things that people can point at and say, why are you doing that? My intent is there, and I'm happy with my intent, and that intent has got to follow through in terms of my investment decisions. Otherwise, I'm speaking one thing and I'm behaving another, and people are very sensitive to that. I think it's why I know I have a strong voice, and I think it's because people do believe me. Well, I hope they do, because you know, because I am, you know, I intend to do the right thing.
So you touched on the work Nestle's doing with plastics, but I'm curious, are there any other environmental innovations happening in the business world right now that you're particularly excited about? And, you know, we'd be especially excited to hear about any examples from the plant-based food sector.
So I love, I've done a bit of work with Octopus Energy. I really like them because they are very, very driven and innovative. And, you know, they're always coming up with the latest, you know, that lovely scheme that says, if you switch your power off between, we you know, there's a big drain on the grid between these hours, you get an email, we're on it, I love it. We get an email just saying, look, if you can use less energy between the hour of here and here than you usually use, we'll pay you, you know, it'll be, and then you get a little email saying, yesterday, your actions, all of your group actions, meant that we could have powered the city of Leeds on the amount of energy that you saved. And I love those kind of, you know, that's makes it very personal. It doesn't just say, can you please do it, to get the feedback to say, look, it's not, look what you all did. So I love them. I love, this isn't a huge innovation, but one of the big criticisms of sort of buying green things, that they cost more money, and Octopus have just come up with a very low cost heat pump, which is, and they're only just going into production, and they're doing it with the sole intention of saying heat pumps cost too much money. You know, we need to get more heat pumps out there. We need a low-cost alternative. You know, and I love businesses that spot what the barrier is and then tackle it. So that's not a great new invention, but I was talking at one of their events, and I met this amazing guy you might have seen them, but these big vacuums that suck carbon out of the air in a park. And then turn them they're turning them into jewellery, basically turning them into little diamonds. You know, it's just a great big vacuum cleaner. And they're very cool looking things. And you know, and in Korea, what they're doing, they're using them to set up green areas. So they're saying, okay, here's a green area, here's a park, and the air around this is going to be really, really clean because we're able to take the carbon out. So that's one approach. Now, we can't rely on sucking carbon out of the air. You know, we need to reduce the amount we put into the air. But I do think that the solutions are going to be, you know, many alternatives. You know, sucking out of the air, putting less into the air. I love them. I love there's these great little machines that sort of sputter along the water and pick up all of the plastic. They stick them on a canal and it'll pick all the plastic up and clean it all up. You know, there is some fantastic stuff going out. I met Bupa ran a brilliant competition for sustainable innovation, and I met this brilliant lady who's making all of their scrubs for hospitals out of recycled materials. Of course, why wouldn't you? You know, and getting rid of all of the there's horrible plastic single-use things. So there's loads of stuff going on, and when I go to those events, I come away so hopeful. You know, I'm just they're brilliant. People are brilliant. You know, they do some brilliant stuff. You know, and then I walk into other environments and think, oh, come on, guys, really?
That's really exciting. I've heard about these carbon sucking vacuums, but I've not seen one. I didn't think they were.
Google it. It's a good Korea. There's a city in Korea that's got one in. It's a really cool looking thing. Yeah.
I didn't know they were. I thought they were just a concept. I didn't know they'd been brought
in use.
Amazing. Cool. And we're just about to wrap things up, I reckon. The last question I was going to ask you is whether you have a favourite vegetable to cook. But the conversation has made me that's the wrong question. But our campaign...
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
That. A dirty jacket potato straight out of the garden, because I don't have to do anything with that. That just goes straight into the oven.
Oh, that sounds so idyllic. I'd love a space to grow things. We're actually very lucky. We do have a vegetable garden. I would say in the summer we're pretty much self-sufficient. Amazing.
And actually for a bit of the winter, but after a while you get a bit fed up with root vegetables.
Yes. Well, our Veganuary's focus this year is all about vegetables. We have a Vote for Veggies campaign, so we're going to ask every guest what their favourite vegetable is. I'm going to be really cheeky and go on complete diversion. I am a huge Strictly super fan. And I was just wondering, do you watch, because we've got this is Strictly Come Dancing, Wendy, which is our version of Dancing with the Stars. The new series has just started. I'm just interested, do you watch with interest, or is it been there, done that?
So my comms went down about 10 days ago.
Okay.
And we don't get a television signal where we are. So I have completely missed Strictly until I went up to London to see my sister Emma, and she took me through. We sat there one night and just watched all the dances. It was brilliant. And my goodness, I am so glad I'm not competing this year. The standard is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Does it make you feel nostalgic for it?
No, do you know what? I had the best time. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But it's out of, it's done. It's done. And I'm not that good. I don't look back at things and I don't think, oh, I wish, that was me again. It was an amazing moment in my life and rare, and I feel extremely lucky. But I'm kind of not nostalgic. I'm not that. That's not about Strictly. That's about life. I tend to keep my eyes forward. I think that I've done that. Wasn't I lucky? Now what's next?
Brilliant. I think we'll leave it there. It's been lovely to talk to you, Deborah.
And you. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, how fantastic to talk to Deborah Meaden. Wasn't she great, Wendy?
Oh, yeah, she's fabulous.
So it's time for us to eat some food. So you suggested that this week I make s'mores. I felt familiar with s'mores. I'm sure I must have eaten them before. So it's just like a biscuit with marshmallow and chocolate and then another biscuit on top. It's a biscuit sandwich, isn't it? And you use in the US you use Graham's crackers, I think.
Graham crackers, yeah.
Good. But I couldn't find those, so I've just used Digestive Biscuits. These were so easy to make and they're quite fun to make, aren't they? But I do worry it's like a heart attack in a snack anyway.
Yeah, kind of quintessential American summertime treat. And always very messy to eat.
It's quite crumbly. I don't even. It's quite chewy. Well, that's lovely. I think I made it yesterday, so I think if it was hot.
Ooh, no, you want that to be warm for sure.
I think if it was hot, that would be better. But well, thanks for introducing me to that, Wendy.
Anytime.
I appreciate that. Oh, I should say it was really easy to make vegan because I just found some vegan marshmallows, dark chocolate, like 70%. Digestives, I think digestives are nearly always vegan, as far as I know. These ones were from Asda. Over to you.
Stu, I don't know what a digestive is. I've heard this term, but can you explain that for our American listeners?
So it's quite a plain biscuit. It's very sweet. When I was a kid, we were sort of told they were like healthy biscuits. But I mean, they're still really sweet and sugary, so I can't see. But I guess they're healthier than ones with lots of icing and things. So I don't know why they're called digestives either. Maybe that was some marketing ploy to convince people they help with their digestion.
Yeah, well, sounds like it worked. The healthy biscuit.
I think you found a classic UK biscuit, haven't you?
I did. So I went to the British section of my local grocery store and I found some Jammy Dodgers, which I've learned are vegan by default. So I should have opened them before, so you're going to get a little ASMR Jammy Dodgers opening here.
Nice. You've never had this before?
I've never had this before.
Whoa.
So they're quite pretty. They have a little heart on there.
Yes.
And what is it, like a raspberry jam between two shortbreads, basically?
Raspberry or strawberry, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So this package says raspberry. So is it like an Oreo where you should open it? Or do I just bite the whole thing?
I mean, everyone has their own way, probably, of eating a Jammy Dodger. For me, I just shove it all in.
All right. Here goes nothing.
How's that? It's good, isn't it? It's pretty good.
Yeah.
When I first went vegan, I assumed those wouldn't be vegan, and it's kind of thrilling when you find out, like Jammy Dodgers and Oreos.
Yeah.
A lot of biscuits, bourbon biscuits. Do you have those bourbon biscuits in the US?
We don't have those, but we do have another called Nutter Butter, which is like a sandwich cookie with peanut butter that is accidentally vegan.
I love peanut butter. That sounds nice.
Yeah, the jam layer is a little bit more like chewy than I thought it would be, but it's nice. It's an interesting texture. I would buy these again.
Good. What a hit. Right, shall we move on to something healthier now? So we're back to our vegetable league. I'm going to pull two more vegetables out of the bag. I've got my oven glove. Here we go. Do you know my oven glove says on it? I don't know if I should read this out really. It says horny for food.
All right, drum roll. Let's see, the veggie of the week is...
I have a parsnip.
A parsnip.
Are you a fan of a parsnip?
I do like parsnips, yeah.
I like a parsnip. They're sort of a big part of a British Sunday roast.
Interesting. I would say they're very uncommon here, and the average bird probably wouldn't have eaten a parsnip before.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Yes, so we would often eat them just roasted, like roast potatoes, really delicious. And then I actually, before I went vegan, I came up with a recipe of my own invention, and it was parsnip and chicken in like a creamy stew thing. And one of the essential things of my recipe was like I grated some parsnip and then chopped some into cubes and put them together. It's really
clever.
good.
Have
so
you
now,
veganized
yes,
this recipe?
so now I just make it either with firm tofu or like a chicken substitute and coconut milk.
Sounds delicious.
Shall I pick out the next vegetable?
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. What have I got? Oh, we've talked about this already on the podcast.
Yes, we have.
It's an aubergine, an eggplant.
Yes, eggplant's been getting a lot of airtime this season.
It's just such a beautiful thing to look at, the way it shimmers in the light of the studio.
Things only a vegan says.
So what first comes to your mind when you think of an eggplant?
Yeah, historically, I wasn't much of an eggplant lover, but my partner, it's his absolute favorite vegetable. So I've been really working on perfecting my eggplant.
Nice.
And I think I've said this on a previous episode, but steaming is really my favorite way to cook it right now, getting it nice and soft and putting it in like a soy sauce.
Lovely. So if you had to choose parsnip versus eggplant.
I eat eggplant a lot more often. So it'd be hard to let the parsnip go, but I think I'd go with eggplant.
Interesting. I would go parsnip. So,
Ooh,
the
divisive.
jury's out. How are we going to decide? I think maybe if we put, I don't know. Alex, what would you go for?
Parsnip all the way through.
So Alex is saying
parsnip all the way.
parsnip. So that I think parsnip's going up on the leaderboard.
Fair enough.
There we go. Right. So that brings us to the end of the podcast. This podcast was recorded at Distorted Podcast Studios and produced by Jim Moore at Bloody Vegan Productions. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and rate us 5 stars. If you want to contact us, you can send us an email at podcast@veganuary.com, and you'll find Veganuary on all the usual social media channels.
You can take part in Veganuary by signing up at veganuary.com to receive 31 daily emails filled with hints, tips, and recipes, all meant to introduce you to a vegan diet. It doesn't have to be in January. You can sign up anytime, all year round.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
1, 2,